First and foremost thing, always when it comes to decision making of a higher education institute, treat it like a tree which has a age of at least 300 years.
You worked with a lot of places. What was it about the IIM's work culture that perhaps helped you become an even better human being and professional?
Honestly speaking, I love some of these civil servants who are like dedicated to the nation. Their public service motivation is to be saluted. Nishant Warwade was the collector there.
Acha, Hanji,
It was
please.
2017, 16, 17. He said, राम कभी उसकी मदद करके देखो जो आपको वापस मिलेगा भी नहीं और जो आपको वापस धन्यवाद भी नहीं कर सकता है. In collaboration with XLRA Jamshedpur, IIM Raipur is offering a 3 days program in titled Strategy and Leadership Lessons from Nature in Tadoba Wildlife Sanctuary.
Tell me, what are some landmark achievements of IIM Raipur in the last 5 years that you're particularly proud of? So, what do you think about this whole statement about AI going to take away jobs, and how is IIM Raipur helping through its courses, etc.?
And he would pick up anyone who comes with a gift. He would say refuse if the person doesn't understand, and if he forces the gift, he would pick that up, and before all of us, he would throw it straight from the third floor down there in the foyer that was there. And for me, it would be like, Mama, what is happening there? I was वो बच्चा था तो कुछ समझ में नहीं आता था.
क्या
But
बात?
later on, it seeped into me a value which I call as professional integrity, and I value that a lot. I strongly believe that higher education and education as such should not be priced to exclude a certain person of the society.
Hello and welcome to MVP The Master's Voice podcast from MediaBrief.com. I'm your host and friend Pavan R Chawla, and I'm delighted that my distinguished guest on this episode of MVP The Master's Voice podcast, our award-winning series, is Dr. Ram Kumar Kakani, Director of IIM Raipur. Dr. Ram is a distinguished academic and leader with extensive experience in finance, governance, and public policy. He's been serving as the director of the IIM Raipur. Dr. Ram's focus lies in shaping strategic direction and fostering academic excellence. And much more, we will talk about it all. But first, please, very quickly, allow me to welcome Dr. Ram to the episode. Dr. Ram, बहुत बहुत स्वागत है. Welcome, and thank you so much for your time.
Dhanyawad, sir. Pawan, sir. I'm honored that I've been invited in this particular podcast series and would love to contribute to the nation building.
Very, very honored by your presence, Dr. Saab. And I thank you for your time. And the very fact that maybe just 2 days from now is a huge convention of your institute. And on a Sunday, you have given me time to do this just a couple of days before the convention is to roll out at 8:30 in the morning. So I salute your dedication and your service of IIM Raipur. So thank you very much. And thanks also to your wonderful comms partners. There is young Nitin Jagar of Fat Factors PR, and there is Rahul who works along with him. So I think you're in very good comms hands. Thank you ever so much. And thanks to both those wonderful people. So, Dr. Saab, without any further ado, सबसे पहले मैं चाहता हूँ कि थोड़े से bragging rights जो होते हैं ना, I want some bragging rights for my episode. For the youngsters who will definitely want to listen to this and watch this episode and read about it on the post, क्योंकि मेरे साथ आप हैं आज, and everybody is aware that education is extremely important. और या IIT होता है पहले या IIM होता है, और आप तो IIM रायपुर के डायरेक्टर हैं. So, Dr. Saab, First, please tell me a little bit about your own profile. There is a lifetime of service to education, to training, to so much more that you do brilliantly well. But just walk us through, आपने आज तक इस अपने करियर में क्या-क्या किया है? कैसे आपने शुरुआत की और कैसे आप आज आईआईएम रायपुर के डायरेक्टर हैं? And maybe try to give us that answer in about maybe a minute and a half. It's like an impossible task, पर कोशिश कीजिए. Okay, I want to know what were your main learnings also, please.
राइट। सो आई बीन बोर्न एंड ब्रॉट अप इन कोस्टल आंध्रा, एंड उसके बाद में मैंने इंजीनियरिंग किया विशाखापट्टनम से। फिर मैंने अपना पीएचडी किया आईआईएम कलकत्ता से, एमबीए कम पीएचडी। इस बीच जो है, इन द मिडल आई वर्कड इन द इंडस्ट्री, स्पेशली स्टील अथॉरिटी ऑफ इंडिया लिमिटेड, इंजीनियर्स इंडिया लिमिटेड, एंड फॉर अ वेरी शॉर्ट टाइम ऑफ couple of months in Blue Dart as well.
Oh,
So, so,
okay.
so all these experiences in some sense helped. And then finally, I was in two minds whether to take up equity research, which I had a job offer, and the IIM Calcutta offer. Finally, I went to IIM Calcutta. So, and then it always used to puzzle me on how people essentially become very rich, and some people go bankrupt because of stock markets. So, in other words, my PhD has been in the world of finance and strategy, and it has been on Indian business groups. After that, I moved to XLRA Jamshedpur, a fantastic place for teaching training. I've been associated with XLRA Jamshedpur for over 20 years. And in other words, you can call me as a boomerang. I joined XLRI. I've resigned XLRI thrice, and I also have the honor of joining them back twice. Uh, so in the middle, these experiments which I did was I worked at Denmark, I worked in Nigeria, I worked in Singapore, I worked in UAE, and I also worked in Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration, 2012 to 15, which a place where civil servants, especially IAS officers, get taught, trained, and go through mid-career training as well. So I would put it this way, that that particular experience at LBSNA was the best leadership curve for me, best learning curve for me. After that, I moved to IIM Kozhikode in 2019, and 2022 March onwards, I've been part of IIM Raipur, and honored that I'm honored to serve the institute in my best possible way. The institute is on mission mode.
Wonderful, wonderful. How nice. Really very inspiring. And what were the, let me ask you this, two or three most important learnings, चाहे वो realization of the most important values हों, principles हों, या कोई खास strategic चीज आपको सूझी हो, समझी हो, जो आपने देखी हो, जो all these three things, one, two, three, whatever, from whichever of these buckets that you have held very close to your heart and which you have always used to measure if anything that has been brought forward to your table, it sits well with you or not.
Yeah. So I'll tell you one small episodes which used to happen during my childhood.
Hmm.
My dad was a cashier in a paper mill and he was cashier of forest department. In other words, करीब 1 से 2 करोड़ जो है वो उनके पास कैश रहता था, and he would kind of distribute every month to the people who would supply bamboo and such things. And hence, he will often keep getting gifts and other things. So I used to be puzzled because whenever we used to stay in third floor of MIG quarter out there, it must be about 1,000 square feet in those days of 1980s, about 40 years back, 40, 45 years back. And he would pick up anyone who comes with a gift. He would say refuse. If the person doesn't understand and if he forces the gift, he would pick that up, and before all of us, he would throw it straight from the third floor down there in the foyer that was there. And for me, it would be like, Mama, what is happening there? I was वो बच्चा था तो कुछ समझ में नहीं आता था.
क्या
But later on, it seeped into me a value which I call as professional integrity, and I value that a lot.
wonderful, 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 wonderful. So that's one value. Beautiful. If everything else will fall in place, if professional integrity is there.
हाँ.
Anything else you want to share?
Yeah, second thing, I would also say, when I went to Labasna, Missouri, I used to work with the IS officers and
Hmm.
other.
Hmm.
And I used to be puzzled. अरे यार यहाँ पे सैटरडे संडे भी काम मिलता है और ऊपर से there is no nothing like no upside out there. And there is no recognition, no reward. Honestly speaking, I love some of these civil servants who are like dedicated to the nation. Their public service motivation is to be saluted. This is a profession which I
No, no, sure.
immensely respect. So in this, there was one IS officer whom I was shadowing, and he was in those days collector of Bhopal.
Okay.
So Nishant said, I used to talk about doing social service, this, that, and all to Nishant. He said,
So
Ram,
Nishant was that collector.
yeah, Nishant Varwade was the collector there.
Acha, Hanji,
It was
please.
2017, 16, 17. He said, राम कभी उसकी मदद करके देखो जो आपको वापस मिलेगा भी नहीं और जो आपको वापस धन्यवाद भी नहीं कर सकता है.
क्या
And
बात.
that, I tell you, has immensely rubbed on me, and I keep rubbing it into my institute's community as well, saying, look, we need to do MLA's program training. We need to do training of anything which comes, which essentially related to elected representatives, because the ramifications can be immense, massively. एक बंदे को भी कुछ भी समझ में आ गया, बहुत आगे जाएगा इसके बेनिफिट.
क्या बात है, क्या बात है. Beautiful, beautiful. The shadow of good purpose falls a great distance, है ना?
हाँ.
और कोई बात याद हो या?
थर्ड मैं आपको बताता हूँ.
जी, जी, जी.
Uh, my dad expired, and when I was doing when I was in IIM Calcutta, I must be about 20, 23, 24 types. And some very tough days I had gone through. So when those tough days that were there was a fantastic, you can say, things which happened wherein support used to come from various quarters in terms of financial and non-financial as well,
Okay.
because our stipend was hardly 17, 1800, and for a married man to run the home with sister and mother, you need
Family to look after.
exactly, you need to kind of steer forward and find ways and means. So in fact, I used to kind of run printing this thing projects and other things of IIM Calcutta students. I used to print, and we used to make money out of that, and that is how the family ran. And that essentially, all of that led to nearly 10 years of period wherein I would not go home, whether it is Diwali or Holi. I will be seated in my office and keep doing whatever was more meaningful and purposeful. And that, I think, work ethics, na, it immensely helped.
Wonderful, wonderful. बहुत बहुत अच्छा लगा. This is really a big long cut and keep, and I'm going to send it to a lot of students also, apart from all the wonderful professionals across levels, sectors, you name it. Industry captains are our audience, and they have featured on the show, and all their teams and everybody else. I think they will really value and cherish this. You know, beautiful, beautiful, very nice indeed.
And fortunately, I got great support from community members, right from mother, wife to children to, let's say, the faculty and staff. Fantastic team. You need to actually come and experience it.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. You get what you give out, and God is kind. It's our family, it's our associates who really are our strength. And who help us become even better human beings. एक बात बताएं, डॉक्टर
Hmm.
साहब, you worked with a lot of places. What was it about the IIM's work culture that perhaps helped you become an even better human being and professional? ये बताएं.
There are two parts to it. Extremely professional, driven by systems and processes, number one. Number two, democratic governance structures. आप IIM Calcutta देख लीजिए. It's a fairly democratic governance structure. तो आपको ये लगता है power has to be in some sense consulted and distributed, and then basis that you kind of take decisions. In that sense, it's a very well informed decision making process. And intellectual community, I think, thrives on that. You need to give safe and secure environment to the community, faculty community. Then they essentially do magic.
वंडरफुल, वंडरफुल। और ये सिर्फ उनके लिए नहीं है, मेरा ख्याल ये हर कॉर्पोरेट ओनर, छोटे से छोटे स्टार्टअप ओनर से लेके बड़े से बड़े कॉर्पोरेट के लिए, दिस इज समथिंग दैट इज लाइक अ गोल्डन पीस ऑफ एडवाइस फॉर every HR, work culture, architect. You know, it's beautiful. Wow. See, these corollaries sometimes bring out such beautiful responses, which people will really benefit from. अच्छा, चलिए डॉक्टर साहब, अभी बात करते हैं IIM के बारे में।
बिल्कुल।
इंस्टीट्यूशनल विजन है, ग्रोथ है, लीडरशिप है। So let me ask you my first question. How has IIM Raipur evolved since its inception in 2010 in terms of academic offerings, faculty strength, and industry collaborations?
Right. 2010, the institute started. I would like to give credit to the director then and also the highly supporting boards throughout. 2010 to 17, Professor Vidya Sahai was the director. Fantastic, dynamic person. He is currently director of IIM Jammu. And Professor Vidya Sahai, sir, I think ensured that the organization, that dynamism he has seeps into the organization, and he ensured a PhD program gets launched, not just stick to MBA program. He also ensured launch of executive PhD program and a evening, you can say long duration program, degree giving program. So that was there. And then 2017 to 22, the organization was led by uh, Professor Bharat Bhaskar, who incidentally is currently the director of IIM Ahmedabad.
Hmm.
And he essentially ensured construction gets completed, campus moves to the right place, and the institute starts its executive MBA program, among others.
Hmm.
And he also ensured that the systems and processes of the organization are sharpened and top of the notch. Then March 22, I came, and I've got a fantastic board supported by especially the chairperson, Sri Puneet Dalmia ji, and never says no, has gone out of his way to kind of help the institute. And incidentally, for example, our ATG certificate, income tax certificate exemption, which we are the only fourth IIM to get it, for your information. After the
Oh.
first three, ABC,
Hmm. Hmm.
he incidentally helped us immensely. He goes out of his way to help us and the board members as well. So all of this essentially led to the campus essentially growing and rocking. For your information,
Hmm.
in the last 3 years, the academic receipts of the organization have grown by about 20% every year without the campus construction or anything new happening. Number one.
Okay.
Number two, the institute's CAT percentile cutoff, which is there,
Hmm.
which used to be 92% for open quota, has moved to, last year it was 94 percentile and this year it is 96 percentile. What it
My.
means is our pool and quality of students who are coming in is going up drastically. It just shows how academically competitive the organization is. And on top of that, we are the only organization, Pawan sir, which has done 2 days residential training program for all the cabinet of Chhattisgarh and 2 days residential training program for 51 MLAs out of 90 of the Chhattisgarh. Something which you would agree is what we mentioned earlier.
Absolutely. And that is why you mentioned also, Dr. Saab, I will remember this and it just comes back to mind immediately. Help those who cannot reward you or return the favor. You are therefore this part of your institutional and I'm sure even personal and professional DNA is empowering those who are in a position to serve, to make a change with the largest number of people in their constituencies, so to speak, literally and figuratively. So, what you are driving, I think, is the profit of purpose.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Beautifully done. Very, very nice.
That essentially leads to the question which you initially asked. If you permit, I can share that.
Please, please, please.
There is this GE's framework which says people, product, profits.
Yes. Yes.
For a higher education institute, I will say people, product and services, and instead of profits, it has to be stated as endowments, grants, donations, and recognition, which is highly coming from government and non-government quarters also. In other words, for a higher education institute, it is not that you earn money only through what I call as increasing the fees and all those things. Fine, that is one way. But I strongly believe that higher education and education as such should not be priced to exclude a certain person of the society.
Wonderful.
तो देखिए आगे क्या होता है तो इंसिडेंट सो व्हाट वी हैव डन इज वी वर्कड ऑन पीपल फॉर इंस्टेंस वी हैव डबल्ड द faculty strength and I think we've increased our staff strength by 4 times in the last 3 years, and all of this essentially leads to a faculty student ratio which was over 17 has gone to less than 13.
Wonderful.
So
Wonderful.
imagine the kind of you can say quality of interaction and the student faculty student interaction that happens.
Ji, ji, ji.
Second, I think we also have that right now we are working on ensuring that the product and services get sharpened.
Hmm.
For your information, about 3 to 4 months back, we started a new position known as CEO IIM Raipur Development Fund after our income tax exemption and CSR donation certification coming into place. We had a fifth meeting with one large corporate group. They've promised us 101 crores to us for
Wonderful, wonderful. And I can only imagine how beautifully you will channelize it completely for eventual purpose for society through the endowments, grants, and everything else. All these contributions will go out beautifully, wonderful. And I must say that you, as a leader of IIM Raipur, are so selfless that you just keep saying we. You're not worried about putting the brand name of IIM Raipur in what you're telling me, but I will tell everybody that this is the kind of DNA, professional DNA, because an institute is only as good as first its top leader and the leader's wonderful team and the DNA of the students who are working there, studying there, trying to make a career for themselves and a life for their country. You know, how they think. So this purpose driven part is really beautiful. And this is IIM Raipur that we are talking about.
yes. And the organization is always far more important than individuals. Individuals have to be subservient to the organizational.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tell me about, just list out the programs that you have, the number of students that you have totally who are on campus, and the number of students that you touch the lives of and improve through shorter duration programs.
So our flagship offering is two-year residential MBA program. The intake is yearly 350.
Okay.
Second is our PhD program, which is a residential 4-year program, which will have which has an intake of about 15 to 20, depending on the quality of the candidates who come. My sense is this year we'll be taking 20. Second, third, we have a PhD in practice track program, and we have fourth, we have a executive MBA program. PhD practice track has an intake of anywhere between of about 5 to 10 per year at this stage, because an early offering quality has to be far more the focus of.
Absolutely. Okay. And the fourth one you were mentioning, fourth program?
Fourth one is an executive MBA program. This essentially is done through hybrid mode, wherein 85 to 90% is online and about 10 to 15% is offline, wherein they have to come to the campus and experience it. That's also a 2-year MBA program, executive MBA program. So we have these four are our long duration degree giving programs. Apart from this, we also have a postgraduate diploma in digital health. This is typically the intake has 85 to 90% as doctors with 10 to 15 years of work experience.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
this we do in partnership with Digital Health Associates.
So
And
this empowers doctors, sorry to interrupt you, sir. This empowers doctors to deploy digital very, very smartly and effectively. Is that correct?
absolutely,
I'm
in fact,
oversimplifying, but
no, in fact, some of the people who've given lectures are like the health head of Google, WHO head, and Dr. Devi Sethi from Narayana Hospital. So eminent people take lectures here.
Okay. Yeah.
So in terms of what I call as long duration degree giving programs, apart from the what I mentioned, we've got about 1200, you can say, people last year did training programs which was residential here, and about 1700 did training programs which was online.
The
So
hybrid one.
executive training,
Hmm.
you can say, these executive trainings, online ones can range from anywhere between 2 months to about 1 year, and
Wonderful.
they can range anywhere between, I would put it as, 40 hours of online, you can say, classes
Learning.
that are there, to about 350 hours. And when it comes to the residential executive MBA, residential training programs, we have 2 day training program to 15 days training program also.
Wonderful. I must remark here that IIM Raipur is driven by purpose, and the manner in which you uh, run and manage it. Like I said earlier, when before we started conversing, and recorded on this in this recorded format, कि आप ऐसी जगह बैठे हैं कि as the leader of the institution, which is an academic institution of the highest caliber and order, quite a tightrope you walk between head and heart. एंड हाउ डू यू मैनेज दिस? मतलब आप आपका नजरिया क्या रहता है हर डिसीजन को लेकर? आप कैसे उसको इवैल्यूएट करते हैं? आपने 3 प्रिंसिपल्स तो बताए शुरू में, दे आर वेरी, वेरी गुड। बट अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट एनीथिंग एल्स दैट टेल्स यू ये करना है, ये नहीं करना है?
So this diversity of experiences which has happened with me,
हुँ,
of traveling across the globe as well as in India, and working across institutes right in Kerala to Uttarakhand and
जी,
the East, etc., has immensely helped me in learning from each and every institute.
ओके,
And what happens is it results in a few things which essentially can be, you can say, certain guiding principles and thumb rules which we go ahead with. First and foremost thing, always when it comes to decision making of a higher education institute, treat it like a tree which has a age of at least 300 years. I never get driven by thoughts and myopia that I need to get return in 3 months or 6 months. Absolutely, that should never be done. That is where you are going to create a university which is of the level of, people like us will come and go, but we need to understand that the organization has to stay and play after 300 years and become a Harvard or a Oxford or Takshashila or Nalanda, right? And nobody remembers a name from Takshashila or Nalanda, right? But the magic those organizations, universities have done rubs on for generations and centuries together, right? So if that be the mindset, first and foremost thing is have a vision which is extremely long run. Don't take decisions which are going to benefit the organization for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. First. Second, understand that higher education institute essentially is like a large tree. A tree will have some fruits, some people will stay below the branch, there'll be insects below the roots, in there'll be a few things around it, then there'll be those birds which will be there, and seeds, fruits, barks, etc. Each and every part of a tree is useful. One needs to understand that about higher education institute. You can't say, I will focus on only my 2 year MBA program. We cannot say that we will only focus on a PhD program. We have to do things which are socially impactful also, which reflect good governance also. We have to do consulting also. We have to do case repository also. All of this essentially will result in a tree which is large, and a banyan tree which is over 300-year old.
wonderful. Really, this is how IIM Raipur has been shepherded by you, Dr. Ram, ever since 2022. And I'm sure it's going to go a very, very long way. Tell me, what are some landmark achievements of IIM Raipur in the last 5 years that you are particularly proud of? I said 5 years, मतलब 2 साल आपके पहले भी और अभी.
हाँ,
Please
perfect.
बताएं.
NIRF rank of number 11.
Wonderful.
Number two, that is for any institute which essentially is has got created after 2008.
Right, right,
I
right.
think we are there. Second achievement is having an organization with 350 MBA students in a 203 acres.
Wonderful. Third achievement of IIM Raipur.
Sole knowledge partners of Y20 and G20 during the when India was the holding the G20 presidency.
Wow.
We were the sole knowledge partners through Ministry of Youth Affairs. Third, fourth, we have a fantastic program titled Managing Social Impact, a course for our MBA students, which essentially ensures that the students go to the rural areas and immerse themselves for 2 to 3 days, and then after 3 days they come back. So, which we do it in collaboration with the Tata Steel Foundation. Honored to have them as our partners. Fifth, and that's the most beautiful part, we do a boot camp titled Boot Camp for Emerging Managers, wherein for 7 to 8 days, when a student joins, they essentially go through all those things which reduces what I call as traits which are much beyond generation gap, which essentially responds to what we call as trust deficit gets reduced drastically. What happens? Modern generation essentially is a generation with a lot of information overload,
Hmm.
and it's a generation wherein the nuclearity of the families has been rising, and also it's a generation wherein the aspiration of parents and the society all around is very very high.
Hmm.
Fourth, you continuously are barged with external messages and notifications which have got no relevance to what you're doing in a campus. To
Correct.
respond to all of this and many other things, we created this based on what we call a 8 days camp, wherein when they join, they have to essentially go through that compulsorily. And this ensures a lot of what I call as right from socialized break to many of these things getting nuanced, and they essentially going through journeys wherein they hopefully are able to at least sensitize themselves and identify what are their values and what are their value dilemmas going to be, which should be hopefully responding to issues like what I call as substance abuse, or what you can call as suicidal tendencies, and as those kind of things as well.
Fake and partial news, so many aspects that keep coming on to them. So it teaches them actually this boot camp at IIM Raipur in the beginning of 8 days with managers, emerging managers boot camp. It helps them, uh, you know, uh, go straight to the kernel of the most important things and forget about all the flotsam and jetsam that is around, which makes really not much sense. I think it gives them the focus, right, of being able to परख कैसे सकते हैं और कैसे अपने इंस्टिंक्ट हेड और हार्ट को मिला के किसी भी चीज को रिस्पॉन्ड कैसे कर सकते हैं. एम आई ऑन द राइट ट्रैक हियर?
Yes, for instance, how does student Pavan behave? I'm sorry to call you as a student.
Please.
How does how does student Pavan behave in a two-member group activity, in a seven-member group activity, in a 15-member group activity, in a 35-member group activity? Even we make them go through this. So you are essentially looking at your own behavior and seeing where can you improve. Because things like EQ and aspects of behavior are that is cannot be kind of I can't every time give you a EQ square sheet and say देखो आपका EQ कम है. I'll have to make them experience it and understand and make them reflect through a journey of self reflection to come out of it.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think every corporate should come to you and say, please, doctor, please deploy a nice team. And for my own employees, my own associates and partners in my firm, please make them get the self realization on the importance of emotional quotient to be high. How do you ensure, Dr. that Dr. Ram of IIM रायपुर, आप वी बोलेंगे तो लोग जो जो अभी अभी आया वो ये नहीं देखेगा कि IIM रायपुर की बात हो रही है. मैं चाहता हूँ कि वो बहुत बढ़ चढ़ के आए क्योंकि उसकी जो अवेयरनेस है ना वो और भी बढ़े. इट्स वेरी रिस्पेक्टेड अमंगस्ट ऑल द IIMs in India. It's amongst the 4 of out of 25 that have this income tax exemption and is going in such a purpose driven way. I'm sure every one of them is like that. That is the whole DNA of IIMs. But tell me, how do you ensure IIM Raipur, and I'll still ask you that question despite what I just said, how does it remain competitive with older IIMs and private B schools, both in India and globally?
So, first and foremost, you would agree that word of mouth is the best marketing tool. So, work on that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Second is keep doing and keep sharing your work with people who are there in a very clear cut fashion.
Ji.
So, for instance, I'll give you an example. Our performance audit every 3 years, it happens for every IM, was done. I had two people coming from the industry. And one of the industrialists who went through the organization about this was about 8 to 9 months back,
Hmm.
ended up saying that, look, you need any help, we will do it for you. Don't even talk to anyone else. So that's the kind of, you can say, impact which essentially the organization has.
Hmm.
Idea is, if you keep working and if you also create a team which essentially is highly committed, and it's not just me, the older lot also has brought in a lot of devotion and loyalty to the organization. The organization goes places. We have got some very A-star kind of faculty community. I'll give you a small example. Look at the citations of Professor Sumit Gupta. He can walk into any Ivy League college of his choice. Similarly, Professor Badrinarayan Pawar, he is the world's top 10 OBHR faculty. We have the ex-CMD of HPCL, Dr. Pushpkumar Joshi ji, in our organization. President HR Global, Aditya Birla Global, Sri Satish Anandji has joined our organization as an adjunct faculty. So magic is happening, and all these, you will agree, when all these intellectual folks come and have conversations and create meaningful engagements. So one of the best engagements, I'll give you a small example.
Please.
In collaboration with XLRA Jamshedpur, IIM Raipur is offering a 3 days program in titled Strategy and Leadership Lessons from Nature in Tadoba Wildlife Sanctuary at priced at, I think, 3 lakh rupees. And this is not for anyone who's running a company of less than 100 crores.
Wow.
So the idea is extremely clear. If you look at this particular engagement, I don't think in India there is any other offering of this level and quality. And some of the speakers are like Sri Shantup Mishra, who essentially, incidentally, was earlier in the corporate world, Unilevers and Aditya Birla Group, etc., Tata Group as well.
Wonderful. 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 डॉक्टर साहब टेल मी कि जो विजन कल्चर और ब्रांडिंग है आईआईएम रायपुर का what inspired the symbolic elements in IIM Raipur's identity? There is the aureole, there is the growth element, and the two colors, burgundy and black color scheme. Isko zara put it in place for us. I mean, I will play back, I will show the depiction, the visual depiction of your symbolic elements in your IIM Raipur identity. लेकिन जो मैंने आपसे बातें पूछी इनके बारे में जरा बताएं. Explain it to us. Demystify it.
Okay. So first and foremost, if you see in our logo, you will typically come across a line which is noted as Swakarma Nirata Siddhim. It is from chapter 18 of Bhagavad Gita.
जी.
What does it convey? It conveys that you do your actions as per the rules that are given, and you keep doing that, and your actions, thoughts, deeds should reflect the responsibilities and roles that have been given to you.
जी.
In other words, if you are a student, keep doing your duty and repeating it and automatically perfection or salvation or whatever you may call will happen. Similarly, as a director, I have to keep doing my duty in this position without, in some sense, thinking as a, let's say, someone else, or thinking as someone else, and repeating it, and automatically perfection is bound to happen. So Swakarma Nirata Siddhim is one aspect of the logo which you will see. Then burgundy color essentially was chosen because it reflects Chhattisgarh and the artwork of Chhattisgarh. You also will see a lotus which is there, and you also will see rising sun. So lotus essentially shows the, you can say, the way forward, and rising sun essentially shows how the energy essentially has to. They're like the roots which essentially seeps into the organization. And
Mm.
all of this essentially also flow into the organization's values, right? Finally, Lotus, for example, shows how pure you have to be. And in that sense, aspects like professional integrity, trust, those values which we mentioned, like equality, etc., do seep in. To give you an example,
Yes, please.
we do not have any committee in the organization wherein there is one gender is not part of it, or second, which essentially has more than 30% of the people from one professional identity group or one professional social identity groups. We
Wonderful.
say bilkul nahi. Same rule happens for even areas and other aspects also. For example, let's say if a certain area has over 30% PhDs from, let's say, IIT Kharagpur, then we tell to that area, sorry, thank you so much, no more IIT Kharagpur there. Or if a certain, let's say, department has over 30% coming from, let's say, the state of Kerala, we clearly say, ab wahan se aur nahi hoga. And because you have to understand that we have to create a culture which attracts foreign faculty and foreign students afterwards. And we can't be seated on our past laurels. And all of this will happen only when we create an organization which is driven by diversity, equality, and inclusion.
Wonderful, wonderful. So it's like a shared responsibility with sort of like-minded people from across spectrums and places. Wonderful, wonderful. So, sir, AI. I believe that, and in fact, my dear friend Partha Sinha, the president of the Times of India Group, was talking to me recently. We were at the Ad Club Awards, and on the sidelines, he says, Ki, Pavan, mark my words, in the next 2-3 years, AI will take away 75% of the jobs. So, what do you think about this whole statement about AI going to take away jobs, and how is IIM Raipur helping through its courses, etc.?
AI is a technical skill, and what it does is it automates the processes which can be wherein the systems and process that can be automated. AI scientists are doing that.
Yeah.
In that sense, there will be all those sectors and you can say departments and divisions wherein human judgment is needed.
Hmm.
There, AI cannot do much. For example, the departments of finance, the departments of human resource, similarly sectors having these kind banking, etc., and also things wherein you can say cross cultural engagement is needed, etc., etc. So those kind of things, I think, are areas where one can focus on. Now, the other aspect of what we at IIM Raipur are doing from 2020 onwards, there has been a course titled AI and Analytics, hmm,
Hmm.
which has been there. Apart from that, we have practicing community members coming and doing workshops for our
Hmm.
students
Hmm.
and faculty on cutting edge things related to AI and the tools such as generative AI and such.
Hmm.
Third is we even have FDPs being done by Ivy League professors. Like there is one scheduled in the first or second week of June
Hmm.
on AI for faculty community members, not just restricted inside, but even others are most welcome and experience it. Finally, knowledge shared is knowledge. I think
Absolutely.
it
Wonderful, wonderful,
has a
wonderful. This is MEP, the Master's Voice podcast. I'm Pavan R Chawla. With me is the peerless director of IIM Raipur, Dr. Ram Kakani. Dr. Ram, why IIM Raipur for every learner in India who aspires to have a higher management education?
Why not Pavan, sir? An institute essentially which is dynamic, which has interactions with the industry, which has community members from the industry as adjunct faculty members, which has a fantastic community members of faculty, which includes people who have quit other institutions and larger institutions and joined us, as well as we have fantastic rapport relation with the government, and magic is happening. One should be part of it where the momentum is. And that is where I would say, why others? Why not I am Raipurne? Why others?
Wonderful. Dr. I want to ask you about any special entrepreneurship management, family run business management program that you have. I guess you would have something like that. But I also know that you have instilled into every management program curriculum, the business ownership kind of mindset inculcating aspect, which is very, very important. Tell me about that, because today, if you look at reputation, which will be my next question, reputation management, any blip on the business fortunes of a company is potentially very, very dangerous for its very survival also. So please tell me about this business ownership aspect that you have been inculcating, or embedding in your pedagogy, in your curriculums, in your students mindsets, hopefully. Please tell me about that.
Okay. There are two to three aspects about it. Let me start by saying our tagline of the organization is building business owners.
Building
Building,
business owners, wonderful.
yes. Building business owners essentially means having people with a entrepreneurial mindset. For instance, in the draft values which we have created and have been circulating, the first thing which comes is responsibilities, and under which essentially it is Mama Sansthanam. Hmm? So essentially, my institute and hence my roles, my responsibilities. Same goes for everyone here. So second part of essentially the building business owners is wherever you go, you need to be taking up what we call as P&L responsibility also. You can't say, I'll go through a training program of 1 to 2 years and then do it, etc. So that's the target. And this has also been seeped into our admission process and even our faculty recruitment process also. So we found a way to get that as well. Second. Third, building business owners also means essentially not just taking up seeking jobs, but it also is creating a mindset of how can I create jobs. And I think that also is a piece on which we are slowly steadily working. For
Excellent.
instance, under the leadership of our the board and the chairperson, we've started a center titled Center for Entrepreneurship in Indian Business Leadership. We're
Okay.
just waiting for certain funds to, I think, allocate it there. And that should be resulting in what we call as a fantastic series on identifying people who have created jobs, and then doing documentaries and other aspects and doing research also. It's not just about doing documentaries, but beyond that as well.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Dr. Today, uh, regardless of function, regardless of level, vertical, sector, whatever, okay, the one biggest thing that probably gives every professional employee, okay, or leader, sleepless nights is the reputation risk. I mean, one of India's biggest PR firms used to be driven by knowledge driven communications. Okay, that was the baseline. Today, it's focusing on reputation and critical advisory, right? So, reputation management is a very, very important task. How do you inculcate that aspect, the awareness of and the owning of self responsibility for that aspect when it comes to IIM Raipur amongst all your students, your faculty, your teams, your associates, everybody? Reputation is our name, is the most critical asset that we have.
So reputation essentially can be split into multiple parts. First and foremost, as the head of the institute, as the director of the institute, I should understand the reputation of IIM Raipur and protect it.
Right.
If needed, taking all the risks that are associated with it.
Hmm.
Second, we've created an ethics board. I really don't know how many other institutes in India or otherwise also have such board, which is active and which creates rules, regulations that are there. And it's a committee of about 5 to 6 people.
Hmm.
And community which joins has to sign and agree on it. Second. Third, we set examples and we showcase them to the rest of the community. Hmm? We do not have any relaxation whenever there is a integrity, you can say,
Right.
mischief which is
Right.
done,
Right.
and especially consciously. Fourth, I think you keep also mentioning it and spreading it around in various ways and means, and people essentially keep talking about it, sharing about it as well.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Fifth, our actions also include things wherein we do not do anything which can possibly give us short term upside but long term downside. To give you a very quick example, a lot of other institutes look forward to doing what I call as SDPs, student development programs, wherein you, let's say, have undergraduate students and give them, let's say, some polishing or some workshop of about a week or 2 or 3 or even a couple of months, and then you give them a certificate of management, etc. We don't do that. We say, you want training program from IIM Raipur, you have to be minimum 25 years and you need to have minimum of so much of qualification or experience or whatever it is.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we have very strong benchmarks and we protect our reputation by also ensuring cannibalization of the product does not happen.
Wonderful.
So I'll give you a small
Yes.
example. Our MBA program is targeted towards people with relatively less work experience.
Hmm.
Hence, our executive MBA program, we say you have to have minimum 25 years, minimum 3 years of work experience. Else, you are not eligible. In other words, if someone wants to do an executive MBA from us and looks forward to it as a potential backdoor to IIM Raipur MBA, sorry, that may not happen. And also, if even if you tick mark both the boxes, you have to go through a certain interview process.
Absolutely. Wonderful. And Doctor, there's one more thing. Like you said, do all these good things and just try to make sure that people know about them. Henna, it's important. So, this other part of trying to make people sort of be aware about it in a circumspect, non bragging, but a matter of fact manner, you know, with decorum. देयर विल बी अदर एस्पेक्ट्स ऑल्सो कहीं कुछ एक प्रॉब्लम उठता है तो उसको कैसे रिजॉल्व करना है कहीं some wrong misinformation goes out and somebody believes it and something happens we don't want that also to sort of hit the fan so to speak so in such a scenario and for such scenarios in the public domain. How important do you think? I do think it is. How important do you think is it to have a very good public relations strategic counsel, PR partner? And what kind of role can it play in tandem with your team's comms team's association? How important is that?
I think you would agree that one of the most important roles in an organization is the media and public relations
Ji,
officer
ji. Yes,
there.
yes.
And all information has to be coordinated and it needs to be routed through them only.
Ji.
And honestly speaking, we've got some great partners as well at Factors who've been doing some very meaningful job. And they also tell us where we lack and where essentially our reputation or our, you can say, aspects on the organization have not been very good and where we can focus and improve it as well.
Okay.
So when we get that feedback, we find ways and means to resolve that as well.
Wonderful.
So these are various things which happen. And apart from that, I think we've got a fantastic, I would say, supporting board, which also ensures and which sticks to a certain values and principles of the organization. For instance, I'll give you a small example. We had this particular incident wherein there were these options of going ahead and expansion using PPP or let's say taking a loan, etc. Our board was very clear. Look, we are a government institute. Let's protect it.
Wonderful.
And let's not go for taking loans that is increasing our risk, or let's neither go for something which essentially possibly involves giving certain rights of the organization to the private sector. So I think that level of, you may call it conservatism, but I think it's a fantastic idea to have such thought process and such clarity.
Excellent, sir, because you build your reputation over years and decades, and it can sort of get tarnished or even shattered in an instant. So, this conservative kind of approach, I think, is absolutely the best one. This is your most valuable and precious asset, and reputation is what sort of is going to grow, like you said. Just like an Nalanda University, you are building IIM Raipur from the perspective of the wish, the hope that even 300 years down the line, it spreads the light and it becomes that big, huge tree like a baobab tree or a banyan tree, which really, really spreads the goodness. So, absolutely wonderful. I salute your uh, wonderful, complete, holistic approach, which is as macro as it is micro, in terms of ensuring that there are no weak links. How wonderful this is. I'm sorry, I'm preaching to the choir and editorializing about you, but it's been a privilege speaking with you, Dr. What did you think of your chat with me on the Master's Voice podcast on MediaBrief.com?
I enjoyed it, every bit of it. The first and foremost, I think you're so supportive, and also you enable expression of the voice, and then you also that second opinion, or what you called as corollaries, really help. And I think making someone comfortable, I think, is the best part of your this thing. I really liked it, sir.
Dr. Ram, thank you ever so much for your time. Thanks also to Nitin Jagad and to Rahul of At Factors PR, whom you mentioned in the show also. I sincerely hope that everybody else has found this episode as rewarding, as full of insights, and as full of wisdom, which is so empowering as I found it to be. So, thank you once again.
We need each member's blessings and support and advice, and look forward to the same, and look forward to each one essentially supporting us, growing us bigger and bigger, and making IIM Raipur the number one institute sought after sooner than later.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ram. So that was my interaction with Dr. Ram Kumar Kakani on this episode of MVP The Master's Voice podcast from MediaBrief.com. Dr. Ram Kumar Kakani, Director IIM Raipur, is doing amazing, brilliant work at making a great thing even better when it comes to the institute that is IIM Raipur. Till we meet again in the next episode of MVP The Master's Voice podcast, this is your host and friend Pavan R Chawla saying, take care, stay safe, stay educated. Bye bye.